Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Randi Thompson, filling in for an ailing Sam Shad. Today we'll be talking to Chris Wicker, who's the Democrat spokesman for the Washoe County Party. Great discussion on local races as well as national. All here on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
From your house to the White House, the folks at D&D Roofing can get it fixed with their eyes closed.
Nearly 200,000 Nevadans work in retail businesses, supporting families and the community. Nevada's retail businesses generated over $2 billion in sales tax revenue in 1 year, including nearly $700 million to help our schools. Shop around and see all that Nevada's retailers offer our state.
We're the Retail Association of Nevada, representing thousands of Nevada businesses.
Businesses that work for Nevada.
I'm Kelsey Grammer. My dad was gunned down at his home at the age of 38. 6 years later, my sister Karen was brutally raped and murdered. She was 18. When my father's killer was released, I found out through the National Enquirer. It seemed like a cruel joke. In my sister's case, I have been allowed a voice in the parole hearings of her killers, but that's not always true in Nevada. Question 1 gives Nevada crime victims and their families a voice in the process and the equal rights they deserve. Please vote yes on question 1.
Nevada farmers have joined firefighters, senior groups, and small businesses to oppose question 3. The state's own study shows 3 would increase electric bills statewide, not just in big cities. Its scheme to dismantle Nevada's existing electricity system also threatens electric co-ops that serve 40% of our state and are vital to rural communities. Please join us and vote no on 3. Thank you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm glad to have on the show Chris Wicker, the former, there's a lot of titles here, former state vice chairman of the Democratic Party and a former DNC member, and pretty much the Washoe County Democrat spokesman. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite Democrats.
Well, thank you.
I say that because you and I can have a conversation about some very heated topics, and yet you just keep your cool and you don't bring in the vitriol. You just have a nice conversation,
well,
and I appreciate that.
Neither do you. So
I'm learning. I'm learning to tame my radical republicanism. So let's talk a little bit about the race. We were expecting a big blue wave a few months ago, and now that looks like it's sort of crashing on the shore. What do you think's happened? I thought Democrats were really excited to go out and vote against Mr. Trump.
They are, and there's a number of other issues too, like health care and immigration. But I never really thought there was a blue wave. Sometimes the media gets excited about something and they say this and they say that, and I just think you have to wait till election day because the races in Nevada anyway, the major races are so close. It's all going to boil down to who goes out and votes. And so I don't see a blue wave. I do see the Democrats taking the House. I think it's very difficult for the Democrats to take the Senate. In fact, they may lose 1 or 2 seats net. But
and do you believe the Kavanaugh hearing on that?
Well, I think it all merges together. I think the only good thing I can say about President Trump is that he has an ability to take events and fire up his base with them, and he does that with a mixture of lies and hot rhetoric. But nevertheless, he knows how to fire up his base, and I think that's a part of what's changed. And the Kavanaugh hearing was unfortunate on both sides. I think
it was.
It was just unfortunate because you had a very credible accuser. The judge after college had an impeccable yet conservative record, and at some point in time, I think victims of sexual misconduct will be believed when it matters. In this case, obviously the judge was confirmed, and so there it sits.
That doesn't mean that we didn't. I found Ford credible. It might not have been, something happened to her, and I I feel sorry that she was brought up in this way. I really do.
And I think that as time changes, victims of sexual misconduct will feel more able to come forward, perhaps contemporaneously with the event. It's easy to see why in the past many women held it in and didn't disclose it.
Millions. We know that. Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully that's something that's changing in our public life.
Let's hope so too. Yeah. So what do you think about the governor's race?
Too close to call.
Besides a lot of outside money coming in.
Too close to call. It's very sad to me to see how much money it takes now in the governor's race, in the Senate race, even in the House races, because there's just so much money, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars spent in a little state like Nevada. You can just imagine, I haven't seen the numbers in some of the larger states. And also the outside money. Both sides are taking in copious amounts of outside money, and it's because they matter. The governorship matters for 2020, redistricting and the race. The Senate race is extremely important. That Site 538 calls Nevada a reflection point or inflection point, depending on how the Senate race goes. And so there's big stakes, and now there's big money.
What are you guys doing to get your voters out this time? Because it's hard when there's not a presidential race to really motivate the normal voters. But you and I, we vote every time we can, and twice if we could.
The volunteers have been tremendous, and the unions also have been very helpful. They realized that a big mistake was made in Clark County in 2014, which was a disaster for Democrats, and we lost all the constitutional offices. And you can pinpoint the reason for that is that the Democratic turnout in Clark County, Washoe County did fine, but in Clark County was abysmally low. And I think the unions learned a lesson, the legislators learned a lesson, and I hope to God registered Democrats learned a lesson, because it was disastrous in the legislature and disastrous for the constitutional offices. There's some people obtained constitutional offices that were, in my opinion, incompetent and should not have been there. Nobody expected them to be there, but they've been there for 4 years now. And
kind of gotten used to them at this point.
Yeah, and it gave Adam Laxalt a leg up to do what he's always wanted to do when he came to Nevada, was to use the Laxalt name to get into politics and go as far as he can with it. And eventually, I'm sure he wants to go back to D.C.
Are you surprised at the Laxalt family feud that's been going on?
Not at all, because I've heard people talk to me about Adam Laxalt, and they have very strong opinions. I've talked to people that worked with him at his old law firm, and who begged me to not let him win the Attorney General's race. And of course he did by I don't know if it's less than 1%.
Yeah, very close margin.
And Adam Laxalt was able to scare what I would consider more rational, better Republicans out of the governor's race, because he lined up so much outside money with his contacts like John Bolton and other conservatives that out of the D.C. area, that he lined up a lot of money, and so he was able to clear the field. And now we'll see what happens on Tuesday.
Well, it is going to be a close election, that's for sure. We'll talk more about it right after this. We'll be back right after this sponsorship.
Tamarack Junction is South Reno's hotspot with over 450 of the latest slots and video games. Sully's Sports Bar, the Dining Car Restaurant, William Hill Sportsbook, and the Tamarack Steakhouse and Lounge. We're just north of the Summit Mall in South Virginia. Yeah.
How do you shed some light on a better economy? Start with growth inspired by Valley Electric Association. We're a member-owned power company that puts Nevada first, and we're doing big things, like providing prosperity by securing renewable energy projects. For Nevada, that means more jobs and more opportunities, all for a strong statewide economy. In other words, together, we're doing powerful things. Visit us at vea.coop to learn more.
I'm Jonathan Scott from Property Brothers. I've demoed a lot of homes, and today I'm knocking down NV Energy's No on 3 campaign lies. The Gwynn Center report says it's not deregulation. California doesn't actually have energy choice. Studies show competition drives rates down. NV Energy's entire No on 3 campaign is a pile of rubble. Ask yourself, why would NV Energy spend $63 million to prevent competition? Nobody's paying me to say this. I'm Nevadan, and question 3 is about our right to choose cheaper, cleaner energy.
The company West Duncan keeps tells a frightening story. Sheriff Gerald Antenero accused of sexual assault. Craig Estey admitted to domestic violence after lying to legal authorities. Nevada Right to Life committed to overturning Roe v. Wade. High-priced lobbyists putting insurance companies before us. Abusers, influence peddlers, and extremists don't belong anywhere near our Attorney General's office. With friends like these, West Duncan can't represent people like us.
The Tamarack Junction Steakhouse is known for signature steaks, handcrafted cocktails, and world-class wines. Join us Thursdays and Friday nights from 4:30 to 6:30 in the Steakhouse Lounge for live music, gourmet plates, and well-priced wines, just north of the Summit Mall on South Virginia.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers with Washoe County Democrat spokesman Chris Wicker. And you were talking about Mr. Laxalt, and I have to divulge that I'm a big Laxalt fan. I have found him to be very principled and conservative, obviously. I think what he did for, as Attorney General on fighting issues related to small business, he was stellar on it. So, but I know he is, I've never seen a figure that's been so polarizing on even the Republican side. I think that's probably, it's interesting.
Well, the old saying is a broken clock is right twice a day, and I would say even President Trump has got some things right. I mean, he's right about the technology theft from China. Adam Laxalt has done some things with the sexual assault,
yeah, the
those
rape
issues,
the rape kit
and those
backlogs.
things. But overall, I find that he's been more interested in fighting conservative battles nationally in lawsuits than really being the Nevada Attorney General. And even sometimes Governor Sandoval didn't agree with the filings. And sometimes I would call them secret filings. Like probably people have seen the ads about his filing a brief in trying to stop the investigation of Exxon. And I think that's why he has big outside money. But I think it's abhorrent what he's done with the Attorney General's office to so politicize it.
Well, and I can't say that I'm seeing Attorney General's offices around the country being this active, and it's because it seems that Congress isn't doing its job. So the last vantage we have is to go to the courts, and which is what now we're seeing this polarization at the Supreme Court. It's sad to see that we're looking at either a conservative judge or a liberal judge. And I mean, to some extent, we're seeing it a little bit in Nevada in our Supreme Court race.
And you're seeing I think the first time I've seen some partisanship in the Kadish and Tao race. And generally there hasn't been partisanship in the Nevada Supreme Court races. And it really disturbs me when you see news reports about a judge ruling this way or that way. And the media will say a Clinton appointee, a Bush appointee, a Trump appointee, because the only thing that supports our judiciary is the credibility. The judiciary is dependent on others for its funding. They have no independent police force or enforcement mechanism. So what the judiciary has is their credibility. And if they lose their credibility, then we almost lose that third branch of government into just another partisan thing that the Congress and the president is. So I hope we turn away from that, because the judiciary, it's vital to our democracy that the judiciary retains its credibility.
Oh, definitely. So do you support electing judges, or should we appoint judges, or should it be a mixture of the two?
There's no doubt in my mind that we should be appointing judges.
Okay.
I can't tell you, and every lawyer will tell you this, how many people come to them and say, who should I vote for judge? I don't know anything about this person. And even in Las Vegas, there's so many judges now running for office. A lot of the lawyers in Las Vegas don't know who the person is running for judge. Yeah. And it's such an important position. And I think a judicial commission that hones down the candidates and appointment by the governor, and then if they want to stand for removal or not, I think it's the Missouri system.
The Missouri rule, right.
Where after they're appointed, people have to keep them in office. I think that's fine. But I think it's just nonsense to elect judges, but that's what we have right now.
Yeah. Well, I remember the legislature kicked around the Missouri rule a couple of sessions ago.
Yes.
And it just doesn't seem to get enough traction. And I think it's probably because we just don't understand the benefit of appointing versus electing.
Well, and people are reluctant to have the right to elect somebody taken away.
Correct.
I understand that, but I also understand that people don't have a clue who they're voting for when they're voting for a judge unless there's some connection that they know.
Well, I remember last session they tried to get rid of electing the city attorneys. And I think there was sort of a backlash to Sparks, but I know, and apparently it's on, Sparks has got a special ballot question about keeping the city attorneys separate, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a different matter, of course, because I think it's important to have an independent city attorney that's not beholden to the city council.
Correct. Yeah.
So, you know, you have to make these decisions, and I think judges should be appointed. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, do you think the legislature will ever get around to?
They haven't yet.
Yeah. So let's turn a little bit to some of the other statewide races. What are you seeing at the like the lieutenant governor's race and other races there?
You know, I've seen mixed polls. I think that you go down ballot a little bit. I think I really haven't seen any credible polling on the controller's race or the treasurer's race. A little bit on the lieutenant governor and attorney general. And those polls bounce back and forth. And what that tells me, and I think the controller and treasurer races tend to have coattails to what people vote for in the other offices. And what it tells me is that this election will not be decided by polls. It'll be decided by how many people actually turn out.
Go to the polls.
And it's, yeah, it's a trite saying, and it's true in every election. But when you have one as close as this on our statewide basis, I guess I could say it's doubly true.
Yeah. So were you a little surprised to see some of the stories coming out about Aaron Ford? Here was the Senate Majority Leader, and it comes out when he's running for AG that he was arrested. He had his son was recently arrested. Are you kind of mad that he didn't get this stuff out ahead of time?
Well, I think that it would have been smart for him to get it out ahead of time. I think some of it did. But I think that when you go back, just like Democrats have tried to make an issue out of Adam Laxalt's arrest when he was young.
High school, yeah.
You look at where Aaron Ford has come from his college days and the degrees he's obtained, the respect he was shown in the legislature. You know, those are things that the other side will use. And I just hope people look beyond that, what somebody did in their college. I just never got caught when I was in college.
As most of us.
Or I might be in a similar situation. And
Very true.
Unfortunate for him, he got caught.
Yeah.
And he paid his dues, and they were not big deals. I mean, they're a big deal to a college kid because you don't have the bail or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But I hope people look past that and see what he's done, which he's done amazing things.
Well, I'd kind of say the same thing about Kavanaugh, but we won't go there. Well, we'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.
This November, some questions are complicated, but the formula for clean energy is simple. It's question 6. Right now, Nevada gets only 20% of our electricity from renewable sources like solar and wind. Question 6 will raise that to 50% by 2030, creating more good jobs and cleaner air. Yes on 6 is simply the only way to guarantee more clean energy.
There's a pattern to Dean Heller's broken promises. After a promise to protect our health care, Heller caved to Donald Trump and voted to end protections for pre-existing conditions. After a promise to protect Medicare, Heller caved to his party bosses and voted to cut Medicare by nearly $500 billion. And now those party bosses are planning even deeper Medicare cuts. The only thing we can trust Dean Heller to do is put his party before your health care. SMP is responsible for the content of this ad.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. And a lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And we're back on Nevada Newsmakers with Chris Wicker from the Democrat Party. So let's turn to some local politics. I was very impressed that there is a Democrat running for every county office this year. It seems to be a new thing for you guys.
Sarah Mahler has been a very good county chair.
Okay, good. And you've got people that are running, and whether they want to be in that office or they just want to serve their community, it is good to see people running for office, having done it myself. So
yeah, and some of those offices have been like a fiefdom, where the outgoing person has retired early so that their handpicked successor could be appointed, and so hopefully we're past that.
Well, but they're also doing a good job. I mean, there's not a lot of complaints that come out of how our county is being administered.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and I think you give credit to the people that work in those offices. They're doing their job. They're bureaucrats, but we need them desperately, and they're doing a good job.
Because somehow being the probate commissioner just would not excite me, but I admire Don Cavallo for liking to do that.
Somebody has to do it. Vrita will make a very good public administrator.
Yeah, but these are jobs that not a lot of people think are important to the community.
Well, and they don't even know they really are there.
Yeah.
The newspaper had the article this morning on the assessor's race.
Now that is probably the most interesting race of all, and I must admit, as a Republican, I'm voting for Chip Evans. I like Chip. I think he's a great guy, and I have some questions. I got concerned about the assessor's office when 3 of the staff for the assessor in the assessor's office were running against their boss. That to me indicates that there's some issues there.
Well, it pays $142,000 a year, and they were saying that that Mike Clark wasn't showing up at work, except for a couple hours. And we had the unusual step of the basically Republican Sparks City Council and mayor chastising Mike Clark for spreading misinformation about that Senate joint resolution dealing with property taxes.
SJR 14.
On top of that, in the assessor's race, Chip Evans suffered a social media attack by bots programmed to spread information, and that he was somehow associated with Nazis and alt-right.
Was it China or Russia that did it?
Apparently, you can pay for that,
yes.
And who would pay for that in the assessor's race? We can't say.
Right.
Who benefits from it? I can say. That would be the incumbent, Mike Clark. And I have to admit that I'm a friend of Chip Evans, and I might be his attorney in filing a defamation lawsuit against Mike Clark, because he's used the MLS system to spread defamatory and slanderous comments about Chip Evans, accusing him of criminal conduct and being associated in a criminal conspiracy. And that's crossing the line beyond political rhetoric. And to me, that tells me how desperate Mike Clark is to hang on to his $140,000 job that he doesn't really have to work. He's got 3 real estate businesses that he does work at. So it just, he seems desperate to hang on to this job, and he's crossed the line.
It seems that no one's really paid a lot of attention to it until today, at least for the Reno paper. But it doesn't seem like any of these offices really get a lot of attention, and whether it's because there's nothing there or there's just...
Well, I think it goes back to the people that work in those offices are very good people. I deal constantly with the clerk's office. People in my office, I work for a law firm, deal with the recorder's office, the assessor's office, and of course the public guardianship is very important, or a public administrator, sorry. And so those are important offices to daily functioning of county government. And I hope people would pay attention to those races. I think the Democratic Party has fielded highly educated, competent, motivated people to try to fill all those offices, so it's no longer a fiefdom, but something that people have to work hard to keep.
Well, and they should. I mean, but they are doing jobs that none of us really truly understand.
Well, and they get paid well for it.
And they get
go
paid
back
well
to the
for it.
assessor's office, $142,000, and there's no oversight. The assessor can do what the hell he wants.
Yeah. As well as most of our offices can.
Yeah.
That's true. I know you used to represent the Public Employees Retirement System, and the Supreme Court just ruled again that PERS has to release information of the names and the salaries. of retirees to NPRI, as well as the Reno Gazette had a lawsuit. I don't know if you're currently working with PERS or not, but I'm just kind of curious how you think that lawsuit is going.
I'm not, but I would say this. I did represent PERS in the first lawsuit with the Reno newspapers. And in that lawsuit, they ruled basically that a lot of retiree information had to be produced, but that PERS didn't have to create a new report. And I think the new Supreme Court case that just came out in the last couple months was an extension of that. It was, I think it was a 4-3 decision because it was kind of controversial because as I read the case, it says that PERS has to, if it has data on its computer system, it now does have to generate a new report to satisfy public records request. And I know that is probably disturbing to a lot of other public agencies because the prevalence of computerized systems in all of our public agencies, if they now have to compile their data and generate a report using the data in their computers, we're getting far afield, I think, of the original concept of the public records request.
Well, that's something that probably needs to be updated in our legislature before long, is what is the definition of public records? I
think it definitely does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, it's great to have you back. We appreciate it. I know we'll have you back after the election, too.
Okay, if we survive.
If we both of us. We'll be back right after this.
Here's former Nevada Secretary of State, Ross Miller.
When I served as Nevada's Chief Elections Officer, it was my responsibility to protect against misleading attempts to amend our state's constitution. The ballot language for Question 3 does not explain what the measure would really do. It would dismantle and deregulate Nevada's existing electric system, increase our electric rates, and lock those changes into our constitution. Please join our coalition and vote no on 3.
Nevada knows Dean Heller lies about protecting our health care. Here's the newest one.
I have not supported, will not support legislation that does weaken Medicare.
8 months later, Dean Heller voted to cut Medicare by nearly $500 billion. And now Dean Heller's party bosses admitted there's a plan to cut Medicare even further. Dean Heller's caved to them before, and he'll cave this time too. Because Dean Heller still puts his political party over your health care. SMP's responsible for the content of this ad.
St. Ives Florist, for every holiday and every special occasion. For romance. Custom home design. We have the largest selection of fresh flowers in northern Nevada. And we also offer a large selection of unique gift items. Come see me, Lorianne, at St. Ives Florist, 700 South Wells Avenue, or call me at 333-9190.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Thank you for watching and listening to an all-new Nevada Newsmakers. Coming up next, we'll be talking to Jill Derby, a former Board of Regent, as well as a former candidate for Congress. Coming up on the next Nevada Newsmakers. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.